Aristotle's Politics begins with a simple observation. Man is by nature a political animal. He meant that human beings achieve their highest potential only within a community, a polis, where they can deliberate, act, and cultivate virtue together. The polis, for Aristotle, was the proper scale of political life. It was small enough for citizens to know each other, to share a common conception of the good, and to hold one another accountable. In such a community, law was not an external force, but a reflection of collective moral agreement. Freedom, therefore, meant self-rule, the ability to participate in decisions about justice, to shape the life of the city through reasoned discussion. Political order was maintained not by coercion, but by friendship, a civic friendship grounded in shared virtue. This model depended on smallness. Aristotle argued that a city must be limited in size, for if the citizens are too numerous, they cannot know one another's characters. Political life was by nature human-scaled. Yet, as history advanced, the scale of society outgrew the intimate circle of the polis. The moral bonds that once united citizens began to fray, replaced by a growing distance between ruler and ruled. By the 17th century, that distance had become a crisis. Thomas Hobbes, writing in the shadow of the English Civil War, saw what happens when the bonds of trust collapse. In a world of millions, individuals could no longer depend on shared virtue to maintain order. What remained was fear. Fear of death, fear of instability, fear of one another. To escape what he called the state of nature, Hobbes proposed a radical solution, the Leviathan, an artificial man whose sovereign power would encompass all others. The state, no longer organic, became mechanical. In the Hobbesian tradition, society is held together not by moral consensus, but by obedience to law. Freedom is no longer the right to rule oneself, but the right to live without violence under a single, indivisible authority. Hobbes argued that such a government is well suited to an association of strangers. It doesn't require friendship, common culture, or shared virtue. It requires only submission to rules. In this vision, the citizen becomes a subject. Political order is achieved not through persuasion or character, but through coercion and centralization. The sovereign must keep under control all competing centers of loyalty, take churches, for example, lest they divide the unity of the state. The Hobbesian solution intends to provide stability to the modern world, but at a cost. It replaced the moral intimacy of the polis with the mechanical peace of Leviathan. This transformation reshaped the entire trajectory of Western political development. The rise of centralized monarchies in early modern Europe, the bureaucratic empires of the 18th and 19th centuries, and the modern administrative state all carried forward Hobbes' logic of scale. Even revolutions that claimed to restore republican liberty couldn't escape this. When revolutionary France declared itself a republic in 1792, it did so over a territory of 27 million people, the largest in Europe at the time. The result, as critics observed, was incoherent, a republic in name, but a centralized state in reality. The moral smallness required for republican virtue had been overwhelmed by the sheer size of the modern nation. James Madison, writing in the Federalist Papers, sought a middle way, an extended republic that would preserve liberty through representation and checks on power. But even this solution accepted the Hobbesian premise that a large society must be governed through institutions, not personal virtue. Thus, freedom was redefined. No longer the capacity to deliberate together about the good life. It became the guarantee of individual rights within an impersonal order. Where Aristotle saw friendship, Hobbes saw a contract. Where the polis cultivated virtue, Leviathan enforced law. The Western idea of freedom was not destroyed by the rise of the modern state. It was transformed to fit a larger world. As human societies expanded, they traded the intimacy and shared purpose for stability of centralized power. Yet the problem of scale remains unresolved. Can a society of strangers truly be free? Or does genuine freedom require the closeness of a community? The human scale of life that Aristotle once described. Our world still lives somewhere in between those two visions, the smallness of the polis and the vastness of Leviathan. Each promises freedom, but of a different kind, one born of friendship, the other of fear. The question that endures is whether, in a civilization too large for the human voice to carry across, freedom can ever again be something that we share, rather than something we endure. Thanks for watching my video, and I'm looking forward to reading your feedback on it.